Dear students, good evening. Please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see the image with the text working with the exchange. Thank you very much. I have the honor of opening this session. So I want to welcome all of you to our training program. I hope you find this interesting and useful and that we can fully meet your expectations. Now, let's go over a few organizational points. Unfortunately, the platform malfunctions, a little under load. We will try to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. Therefore, if there are people who have not yet seen the link to our YouTube broadcast then please go to the Telegram chat, where a group for the new stream has already been created. And there is a separate tab, a separate thread related to the topic of working with the exchange. There is a link to the broadcast there. Please leave all your comments on the YouTube broadcast, because unfortunately that option is not available on the platform. And I will read all your questions in the chat. I will also say right away that I will answer your questions at the end of the lecture so as not to get confused. I might highlight some parts to make it easier not to stray too far, since the first lecture usually has a lot of questions. And I want to clarify in a way that I will only be answering questions related to the exchange. If the questions are about future topics, I won't address them because those are future subjects. You will receive an answer in the relevant topics. I also want to say that if you have any organizational questions, and of course you probably do, please feel free to ask them. You can ask right now. There are specific curators on duty there. In our Telegram work chat, there is a separate thread called Organizational Questions, where they will definitely respond to you. They will respond quite quickly just to avoid taking up airtime with unnecessary questions. Again, I want to emphasize that beginners usually have a lot of questions. Believe me, this happens every session. I'm sure that if you've opened the manual or after this lecture, you'll feel a lot of stress and confusion. A pretty large number of our students who are encountering the training program for the first time start to get nervous because they haven't studied anything particularly serious in a long time. Believe me, you'll get the hang of it a bit. You'll get into the process and it will be easier for you, so please don't worry. Everything will become clearer over time. The first topic of the exchange is quite unique. There's a lot of work with the interface involved. For your training, this information isn't really necessary. It's more project and practice-oriented. But gradually, during the course, you'll start to dive into it and apply that theory in practice that we will try to break down today and lay the groundwork for, along with the methodological materials that you already have access to. You'll be able to immerse yourself in this and go through it calmly. So don't try to understand everything right now in the moment, because that's impossible. Don't even try. In any case, in order for all this knowledge to be available to you, you need to get it into your head as productively as possible. You need to put this into practice, since we don't have any non-theoretical information yet. To practice, we haven't shown any analysis methods, so it's impossible, which means there's no need to worry for now. And over time, you'll understand everything perfectly. So, let's get started. The first thing I want to touch on is to quickly explain what an exchange is, how they were formed, and what the advantages of an exchange are. If I were to briefly explain what an exchange is, it's a place where people carry out their transactions. Buying and selling of some assets, financial instruments, and so on. Why was it formed? Why did they even appear? And why are exchanges needed at all? If people can make deals physically, like finding each other in chat rooms, for example, and so on, it all exists. And today you don't necessarily have to buy something there, I don't know, like building materials. You have to go to a full-fledged construction supply store. You can go into any small store At the same time, in your home, for example, you can find a nearby store and buy what you need. But if you're planning to buy a large volume of materials, you won't be able to do that through a store because there simply won't be enough volume there. And main reason why exchanges were formed, because people increasingly had a demand for large volumes, meaning where they are concentrated, because the global economic and financial system was starting to develop, and along with that, they didn't understand what price they should be making deals at. If there is no centralized source for price formation, then you don't understand what is cheap and what is expensive. And that's exactly how exchanges started to emerge based on all of this, plus the security of transactions. So let's repeat that once more. The first point is centralization, maximizing all the volumes of assets that are in one place. The second is the creation of accurate prices at which you can make transactions. And the third is security, along with a convenient infrastructure, which are precisely provided by exchanges. And if you look at our lives, all services and goods, they are centralized in any case. Huge corporations producing cars, although there could have been many more of them before, they were absorbed, became huge concerns. These could be some kind of salons. It doesn't matter. Any services. These could be goods. It could be anything. It's all centralized. Social networks offer services due to their scale. Exchanges have followed this path. Today, there are few exchanges, usually one per asset class. For instance, there are separate commodity exchanges, which we'll study in this course, as well as cryptocurrency and stock exchanges. There are usually just a few exchanges. And so exchanges have followed the same path. Nowadays, there aren't many. For large countries, there might be a few, often just one for a class of assets. For example, there are commodity exchanges we will study. For instance, there are cryptocurrency exchanges and exchanges for stocks and financial instruments. They are spread across continents or major regions. For example, cryptocurrency is on the exchange, separately linked to stocks. There, some financial instruments, that is, they are all somehow divided, but in any case, most often these are several exchanges. Moreover, they are distributed across continents or large regional associations of countries. You won't see large exchanges in every country. Most often, there is a major country that serves as the financial heart of a regional grouping of countries. And that's where the main trading of assets usually takes place, but in our case, it's more like a classic exchange. We interact more with the cryptocurrency market. So today we will be discussing the cryptocurrency market and cryptocurrency exchanges. And along with that, we will go over the tools we use to place orders. So what we talked about at the very beginning is the exchange. This is a place where sellers and buyers buy or sell various assets, financial instruments, and so on. With what do they do this? With orders. So look at the picture. A person is pulling out a piece of paper like it used to be, and with this paper, he indicates that he is, for example, buying a certain volume of an asset. If before it looked like a regular board where prices and orders for certain volumes of goods were written down, now it has moved to centralized electronic exchanges. What essentially gave us as retail traders, regular people, the opportunity to interact with the financial market. It's all about interacting with the financial market. If before you had to physically go to the exchange for this, I don't think that
Where would most of you have moved at the beginning? Somewhere to New York, to live close to the exchange, to go there every day. And there, just like at work, where I was often found shouting and conversing animatedly with the guys, saying things like, "I'm buying this much, I'm buying that much, and sometimes even more." In today's fast-paced world, the ability to work from the comfort of our own homes has become a remarkable convenience. Imagine sitting in your favorite chair with a warm cup of tea by your side and a delicious sandwich within reach, all while being productive. This is made possible by the use of a terminal, a powerful tool that allows us to perform a wide range of tasks without ever needing to leave our homes. Whether it's coding, managing files, or even communicating with colleagues, the terminal provides a seamless experience that enhances our efficiency and comfort. The flexibility to work in such a relaxed environment not only boosts our productivity, but also contributes to a better work-life balance, making it an ideal choice for many professionals today. In other words, that is, all trading has become entirely digital. And all these exchanges are, in essence, simple and completely digital in nature. Of course, there are still these if someone might have come across the terminology of pits, meaning a pit is a small separate place where, for example, trading takes place. Well, for instance, one pit is for Bitcoin trading, while another pit is for Ethereum trading, but now it's much more. All the volumes have moved to a digital format. And, well, for instance, as an illustration, one pit is for Bitcoin trading, while another pit is for Ethereum trading. But now it's much more. All the volumes have moved to a digital format, and in the current market, this is exactly how the orders are placed, using these applications. All volumes previously in physical form have now been converted to digital format. This is precisely the method by which orders are systematically placed, utilizing these specific applications. The process involves several steps, starting from selecting the desired items, adding them to the cart, and finally confirming the purchase through a secure checkout system. These applications are designed to streamline the ordering process, ensuring efficiency and accuracy at every stage. Rather, the tool we use to place these orders is what we will be discussing with you. And let's get right to it. I hope that what you just saw made you smile. I tried to create an analogy of what is happening on the exchanges as simply as possible. And today we will be looking into the two main tools available on the exchanges that are used to place orders. It happens on the exchanges. And today we will be looking into the two main tools available on the exchanges that are used to place orders. You will see these analogies on any terminal. It doesn't matter if it's some super stock market terminal that's only available for professional speculators, and the same orders in a more simplified form, it's found in the terminals that we use for trading. In our case, these are limit and market orders. Now we will figure out what this is, but first let's introduce what the picture represents and what each part is responsible for. Limit orders are like these seeds. So there are black seeds which represent limit orders for the sell orders are at the top, and the white seeds represent limit orders for buying. So it makes sense. You want to buy as low as possible and sell as high as possible. Therefore, the sell orders will be at the top and the buy orders will be lower, along with the market orders. Now we will discuss why they are different. This is a hamster. That is, the small hamster wants to eat a tiny seed, so it carefully makes its way to a certain point. Let's call it a hole in the cage, where the seeds are lying on top and below, slowly and gently. So this hamster starts trying to run from this point, trying to grab as many as possible of these seeds, depending on what you are. The volume has been set. Well, let's figure it out. First, let's discuss what a limit order is. If you, as a speculator, want to buy Bitcoin at a specific price, then you will indeed be interacting with a limit order. Why? Because a limit order allows you to set the exact price and volume at which you want to buy some asset in the market. All these limit orders, meaning there are orders to buy and to sell, buying and selling. So these limit orders are not placed in the order book or the order book. If you have read the manual, then you are already familiar with this. We will also look at this practically on how does it look on the exchange at the terminal. Here, the order book is represented by two squares. And now we will discuss what this space between them is. Only limit orders make it to the order book, meaning they just sit there, waiting for their moment. When the price gets close to them and activates, which means it approaches and triggers them. Maybe some of you have participated in auctions, and you set a price limit for what you want to buy. For example, right now it's $100. Do you want to buy the asset for $90? So you place a request to buy a certain amount of an asset at $90. And essentially, a limit order is the same thing. You set a price at which you want to buy. And basically, a limit order is just that. You set a price at which you want to buy. And at the moment the price reaches that level, you either buy or sell. You set a price at which you want to buy. And at the moment the price reaches that level, you either buy or sell. Well, if it's a limit order to sell, here's how it works. For example, we place another little seed. Now I'm going to copy this. You want to buy at the current price at this level? Do you want to buy at this price? Here's another little seed added. You want to buy at this price? Let's say the price is about 5% lower here. You want to buy something at more than 5% below the current price, for example. And the same goes for selling with a limit order. You set it, and now it's at this price level. Now another little seed has been added. Do you want to buy at this price? Let's say the price is about 5% lower. You want to buy something at more than 5% below the current price, for example. And the same goes for selling with a limit order. You set it, and now it's at this price level. So, until the current price reaches your little seed, your limit order. For sale, it will just hang there indefinitely. And it will only disappear from here when either the price reaches it. And you will sell your asset, whether it's a stock or some other asset, or you can remove it yourself from there. So, the terminal provides this. Once you place an order, you can always cancel it, and the funds or the asset will return to your balance, so they won't be in the system. Now let's move on to something called the spread. I think you've heard of what a spread is. This is a very common term, often related to currencies or associated with financial markets. What is a spread? The spread is essentially the range between the highest sell order, which is the black seed, and the highest buy order, which is the white seed. What it means is that it can be long, but it can also be very short. What it shows is that the wider this spread is, the more often it means that the market is less liquid. What this means is that as a speculator, you essentially need to pay an additional fee to execute a trade. What does this mean? You're probably used to interacting with some liquid assets like Bitcoin, where the spread between the highest buy and sell orders is very small. So, when you buy Bitcoin, you don't really feel any drawdown because you buy it for the amount you specified. For example, I want to buy Bitcoin for $500 and you buy it for $500. That's because Bitcoin is a very liquid asset where a huge number of transactions take place. I mean for $500 and you buy it for $500? Because Bitcoin is a very liquid asset where a huge number of transactions take place. And it's very easy to do so. If you move to some small illiquid asset, then this spread is an additional fee. For example, at the moment your asset is valued at $100. But the highest sell order, if you want to sell, for example, an asset, it's at a higher price. While if you want to buy, it's much lower. For example, let's say the price of the asset is $100 and you want to buy it at $95. But the problem is that the real price is much lower than the current price. And you expect that when it reaches $95, you'll be able to buy, but you won't be able to. Because at this moment, there simply isn't an order at that price because you've hit this spread range, and the wider it is, the more you pay. I'm on it. I'll practically show this as well. A good example is, for instance, a currency exchange where you exchange hryvnias for dollars. You always see that the buying and selling price from the bank is different. Why? Because the bank makes money off of this. On this spread, you buy dollars from the bank at a much higher price. Then you sell them. Because the bank makes money. It buys dollars cheaper and sells them to you at a higher price. So, it profits from this spread, and this spread can vary greatly. You, I think, have noticed that during volatile moments, when everyone needs dollars, this spread is very wide. The banks inflate it because everyone needs dollars. And in the opposite situation, if the dollar situation is normal, banks compete with each other. Yes, everyone has enough dollars and so on, so this spread is very narrow. well, they're not very narrow, and that means they earn less from it. So that's exactly the spread. This is the distance. In our case, when we're working with the market, it's definitely better for this spread to be as narrow as possible. Why? Because the narrower the spread, the less of these, the less, well, you could say that the losses we incur are better. This is of course not about buying, but about selling, like with black sunflower seeds. Let's say you want to sell your Bitcoin for, say, 100,000. Here is the current price. We'll get back to these lines now. This dotted line represents the current price on the exchange. So for example, you see that the current price is $100,000 and you want to sell your Bitcoin for $100,000, but in the end, you end up selling it for much less than $100,000. That's because there's a spread here, but in the end, you sell it not for $100,000, but for a much lower price because there's a spread here. So in this spread, so up to the nearest buy order. And when we sell, we interact not with sell orders. To sell, someone has to buy. And for someone to buy, someone has to sell. Therefore, if you are selling, you will be interacting. So with these white seeds, so the wider it is, this is the distance from the current price. So what you've already calculated for yourself is 100,000. The wider it is, this is the distance between the furthest white seed order and the current price. The greater your losses. And for some assets, this distance can be as much as 5%. So by selling your asset, you won't get what you calculated based on the current price, but you'll get much less. That's because there's this distance due to the asset being less liquid. Now let's move on to market orders, which is what we discussed earlier about limit orders. A limit order is an order that allows you to set your bid at a price you specify. So a market order doesn't allow you to set a price. It just lets you work. From the very last order, diving into the order book. Now we're going to discuss all of this on the hamster. So, for example, you want to buy Bitcoin, but you can't set the price. How does that work? You want to sell 1 Bitcoin, hamster. So the market sell order starts from the current price and begins to eat up all the limit buy orders it encounters along the way, until it fills the volume you specified. For example, you wanted to buy 1 Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin in limit orders is this much. So, in these limit orders that I've highlighted, 1 Bitcoin is placed. What's happening? The market order starts to work. It eats this seed, it eats these 2 seeds, it eats these 3 seeds, then it stops. And your assets get added to your balance. Along with this, the current price moves to this point, and now the furthest orders are here. Because you ate up all the limit orders in your path. Along with this, sales often react automatically. All these seeds move to this level, and the spread jumps just like that, but most of the time it stays within the same price range. So that's how the price shift happened. And what does this analogy allow us to understand? Limit orders themselves do not change the price. Limit orders are just a density that gets absorbed by market orders, and any movement in the market is always the work of a market order that eats up limit orders. Limit orders are just a density that gets absorbed by market orders. And any movement in the market is always the work of a market order that eats up limit orders. And you understand perfectly well that we just analyzed, using this example, that in this volume there is 1 Bitcoin. But what if there are so few assets? These white seeds, does 1 Bitcoin mean a price shift of 5%? And you want to buy this 1 Bitcoin. So when an asset is somewhat illiquid, therefore the little hamster will run very far to eat all these white seeds. As a result, the price will shift very quickly and the market will drop significantly. And this is exactly what happens when you use a market order on illiquid assets. You can essentially lose a pretty large amount because the order book is very thin, meaning it's empty, and in order to fill the entire volume that you specified in the order, you need to drop down quite a bit. To find that price, that's how it happens. And here we come to another definition that isn't written down here. But let's talk about this. There is something called the depth of the order book. So, the depth of the order book shows how thick the order book is from the current price and further up, well or down, with buy orders. The shallower the depth, the fewer trades can be made without a huge price movement or shift. For us, as speculators, it's more profitable to look for liquid assets, liquid pairs, where the depth of the order book is large enough to fill our volumes or the orders we place. All the assets we study in the course, we try to work with those pairs, to work with certain markets that are liquid. For us, as speculators, it is more profitable to look for liquid assets, liquid pairs, where depth of the glass is large enough to replenish, fill our volumes, or those applications that we submit. All the assets that we study on the course, we try to work with those pairs, to work with some markets. They are liquid. But I don't know what assets you will encounter in your practice. So, it's important to understand this. Now, let's move on to something like the current price. We've already touched on it a bit, but it's not that simple. What exactly is the current price? The current price, highlighted here with a dashed line, is the price of the last executed order. What I just showed you, the little hamster was eating those seeds and the price was shifting here. So, as soon as your order is executed, the current price will move here. Along with this, as we noted, the order book will react and the orders will shift. But why is this important? Because this current price is a barrier. Why? Because above this barrier, there are the black seeds, the limit sell orders, and below this barrier are the limit buy orders for the white seeds. When you want to place a limit sell order, you can't do it below the current price. The black seeds are the limit sell orders, and below this barrier are the limit buy orders for the white seeds. When you want to place a limit sell order, you can't do it below the current price. Why? Because there are opposing orders there, and the exchange will automatically perceive your order. That is, when you place a limit order. If you place a limit sell order below the current price, the exchange will perceive it as a market order. And therefore, if you place the limit sell order below the current price, for example, for 1 Bitcoin, it will act as a market order and will consume 7 until the moment it fills that 1 Bitcoin. When did he do that? The limit order completes its work. And these assets get added to your balance. If the price you set in your limit sell order is below the current price, it exists. Rather, if there isn't enough volume of the asset at that price that you specified in your limit order, then the limit order simply stops working and only partially fills the position. And it will wait for the moment until it either gets filled or you cancel it. For example, could it be that a limit order on these exchanges, it will say that it is filled, for example, by 60%. That can happen too. So that's how a limit sell order works. The same goes for buying. You can't place a buy limit order above the current price. Why? Because there are already sell limit orders above the current price. And there will be exactly the same automatic interaction for the exchange, where a market order in the form of a limit order will try to eat the volume you specified until it reaches a certain price level. For example, you placed a limit order at this price level. At the same time, they said, eat it up. 8 seeds? But we see that there are none up to that level. 8 seeds. There are only 6 seeds here. So what the little hamster will run over, eat all 6 seeds and then stop. Or it will stop and wait until it gets filled. It won't eat those seeds when they drop down a bit, or you can just cancel it. So that's how a limit order works with the current price. It's very important. Why? Because it's precisely with the understanding that there are physical orders behind that line that have already been placed. This builds the understanding of what stop limit and stop market orders are, which students usually have a lot of trouble with. Now let's figure out what these little handles I've drawn here are. The understanding of what a stop limit and stop market order is built, which students usually have a lot of trouble with. These little handles that I've drawn here, let's figure out what they are. We've already mentioned that a limit order can only be placed for buying below the current price and for selling above the current price. Here are the black seeds placed, but what if, for some reason, for some strategy, we want to do the opposite? We want to place a limit order to buy here. But again, we just discussed that it's physically impossible to do this, because a limit order comes into play immediately. How the exchange team will handle the most extreme orders, and how a market order will buy everything above. But we can place this order, not physically in the order book, but we can make it a pending order, which means we set a trigger, like a magnet, a level at which, when reached, for example, the current price hits this trigger. Only after that will the limit order be placed in the order book. That's how it works. Let's say the current price is here, and we've decided to buy at this price, for example, 4.7. But we can't do that, because the extreme buy orders are here. So what do? We choose a stop limit order. There is a separate scale there. It's called the stop price. We're almost going to return to the terminal after my theoretical scheme here. There is a cell called the stop price. This is the price of that trigger, which, when reached, a separate cell for the limit price will be placed in the order book. For example, we set the stop price according to the level of this handle. Along with this, we place the limit order a little higher. Methodically, I wrote about the gap that needs to be set. What happens as soon as the current price approaches the activation price? That is, the stop price, the trigger. At that moment, the limit order is placed in the order book, and the price picks it up. That is, the opposing sell orders that are already a bit above this price. They pick up this limit order, and you buy the amount of the asset you wanted at the specified price, bypassing. This is the limitation that we were just discussing. The same goes for purchases. For example, you want to sell not up here above the current price, but you want to sell below. Now we're going to discuss why to do this. The same thing, you set a certain point, the stop price, at which the limit order will be activated and enter the order book. For example, at this price, what's happening? The current price is descending to the activation point. Reach the stop price, and along with this, the limit order, that is that cell, the limit price is placed in the order book at this price, and opposing orders interact with it, with the buy orders that are already a little below this line at that moment. So you could say that the opposing limit orders hit your sell order and a trade occurs. So that's how it works. Now we will go over this again in practice. Also, by the way, I forgot to mention that you'll have a separate video lesson where everything is laid out as an example. By the way, there are also some nuances and little details. And the last theoretical point on the scheme is the stop market order. Stop market order. It's the same as what we just discussed with the exact same stop prices. But in this case, a market order is used, not a limit order. And we remember that with a market order, we can't specify the price at which we want to make the trade. So, when we use a stop market order to buy, or rather to sell, below the current price reaches the stop price, and then it immediately triggers automatically. The market order then interacts with the limit buy orders. In other words, the reverse transaction happens, and you sell the amount of the asset that you wanted. The market order interacts with the limit buy orders. The reverse transaction happens, and you sell the asset you wanted. Buying above the current price applies. So, a reverse transaction happens, and you sell the amount of the asset that you wanted. The same goes for buying above the current price. Once the current price reaches the trigger, the market order starts to interact. It interacts with all the limit orders it finds above the current mark. It will fulfill your entire request, and it will keep doing this until it completely fills the volume you specified. For example, if you said to fill me 1 Bitcoin from the current mark with all the limit orders it finds above. Completely fulfills your application. He will do this until he absolutely completely fills the volume that you indicated. If you indicated to fill me 1 Bitcoin, and here there aren't enough of these orders meaning there's not one Bitcoin available. For example, we have how many here? 7 little bits. 7 little bits, that's only 0.5 Bitcoin. So it will need to keep going up to find the remaining 7 little bits at the moment it completes this. The current price will move here since you've made a trade, and it gets recorded in the exchange's terminal. It's like indicating the last price, and the price shifts. Along with this, the order book shifts. And the white bits will be here, while the black bits will move to the red line. Now let me explain to you why we are doing this at all. So, why do these stop prices exist? So why is all this necessary? What about these stop prices? When we work with limit orders, whether regular or market orders, we are essentially only interacting with the current price. We can't just move the trade around. And why does it move? It moves first either to place a stop order, and this is usually the reverse order of what you did earlier, or to set this up. If we're talking about a stop limit order or a stop market order, there's a strategy that we don't touch on in our concept and we don't trade it, called breakout trading. You might have heard about how these trades happen. For example, there's a certain price level that the price approaches, and this comes from classic technical analysis. After that, as soon as the price breaks through this level for some traders, if the price breaks through, for example, and consolidates, this is a signal that the level has been broken and the price will continue to go up. They have a pending buy order set here, meaning it's above the current price, because the current price is at this level right now, and after that, when the price reaches this. A stop limit buy order is set above the current price, a certain volume of assets is purchased, and then, for example, the price goes up and the trader makes a profit. In our concept, we do not use this variation of this tool. We do not buy above the current price, but we use a stop, limit, or stop market order to sell. Why? To set a stop order, a level at which you incur a controlled loss, since your trading strategy didn't work out. We'll discuss this in more detail within the topic of risk management. So please be a little patient. Just know that this is some price level at which we close our trades at a loss because our trading strategy didn't work out. How is it set? For example, let's draw it practically. You set it up. For instance, you opened a trade or bought an asset. At this price, the current price is now starting to go up. But at some point you suddenly realize that the price is starting to go against your idea. Earlier, when you bought this asset, you set a stop order so that as soon as the price reaches this level, you start selling it. Or let's even set it lower, because you bought at this price and there will be a loss. So, for example, with the movement of this price from the point where you bought, the red line, and here is the stop order. At this level, for example, your loss will be 1%. As soon as the price starts to go down, and you remember that we want to sell below the current price, where is the selling for us? If we want to sell and place a regular limit order, we can only sell above the current price, and the current price is above. So here we can set it up above, but we need to set the sales lower because we want to close our trade at a loss. Therefore, we set a stop limit or stop market order below the current price. And as soon as the price approaches the trigger in the form of the stop price, the limit order goes into the order book or the market. Order starts interacting with all the extreme bids for buying. Our trade closes at a loss of 1%. So that's what the stop limit or stop market order is used for. I'll emphasize this once again. We use a stop limit or stop market order. At the moment when we want to set a stop order, you can write this down, remember it, and so on throughout the course. This idea will essentially stick with us as we move forward. Let's go back to the terminal and try to figure it out in practice. For this, I'm moving on. Well, let's go straight to the futures terminal. I think that if you've already opened the methodological material, you're a bit familiar with this, and we'll go over everything I've just talked about theoretically. Friends, if I see in the chat that this is going to continue right now, that this is continuing, the conversation about getting married successfully and so on, I'm just going to block you on our YouTube channel. I asked not to flood the chat. Why? Because I will be reading all the questions from the top. If I see spam, I will ban you, and you won't have the chance to ask a question during the live stream anymore. You will ask in the work chat. Please, I read the questions from the top, and if there's a lot of flooding, I will just do it more slowly. And I will respond less to constructive questions. The lecture will last for 3, 4, 5, however long it takes, hours. So please don't do that. So, here is the regular classic terminal that you will see on any exchange. On the right is the order book, which we were just discussing with the hamsters, but now we'll be doing it without the hamsters. In practice, this is what it looks like. So here we see the sell orders and the buy orders. Here is the current price. I'll remind you that the current price is formed based on the last trade. Here you can see a column that shows the most recent trades by time, the volume they were executed at, and the price. Here, you can quickly take a look. Nothing has changed. 4,984, 531, 984, 531. So here we see the last order and the last price, the extreme sell order, the limit order, and the extreme buy order, the limit order, the difference between them. So we see that the prices do not match exactly, meaning there is a difference of $3. This is our spread. So if you subtract 984,706 from 98,463, you'll get this amount. You can calculate the percentage from the upper price. And this essentially is our spread. So this empty space presents our hidden commission when making, for example, a sale. At the current price, you see how a speculator calculates based on the current price. You think you will sell one Bitcoin at a price of 984,693, but in the end you start selling it at a lower price. And why? Because the extreme order is much lower, and the wider the spread, the more it affects you. You think that you will sell one Bitcoin at a price of 984,693, but in the end you start selling it at a lower price. And why? Because the last order is much lower, and the wider the spread, the more it will be your loss, or can't really call it a loss. It's more like what we refer to as slippage, but I'm trying to explain this to you in simple terms. The lower the price will drop to find that order, which will be the counter order for your sale. About the depth of the order book that we discussed. See, here is a red line. You see this column, triangle, that starts to increase from the current price, and the same goes for the current price. The green one starts to decrease. You see how the pyramid is building up again? This is the depth of the order book. To understand what it is, there is a central column here that indicates the amount of Bitcoin. Look, it's different at each new level. Why? Because some person wants to put up at such a price, for example, some Bitcoin volume, someone wants to put up a larger volume at a different price. It is not equally distributed. It is distributed differently. But when you and I want to buy a large volume of Bitcoin, we need to understand how much the price will drop from our purchase, meaning how much our losses will be and how much money we need to spend to buy the specified volume of the asset. Please take a look at the cell that appears in the middle. And let me know, I'm currently moving the mouse over the central scale. The amount of Bitcoin you have appears as 3, a gray table consisting of lines. Please tell me, can you see it or not? Is it visible through the broadcast or not? In theory it should be, but I need confirmation. I'm moving the mouse right now, and it's updating. Great, thank you very much. Look, if I hover over the very first limit order, the one at the far end, here the volume is 0.3. Bitcoin, and here in the middle, there's a cell like this. It says the amount is 0.1 Bitcoin. So it repeats the very last one. Oh, please stop writing. I already got that. Everything is working. It repeats the same number that you see in this cell. But if we go lower, you see what? This number is increasing, meaning the amount of Bitcoins in the gray panel is going up. Why? Because here it's summing up all the Bitcoins that are below. And the lower we go, the bigger this number will grow. What does this mean? This means that if you want to buy 10 Bitcoins, you'll have to move the price up to this current level. So the price will shift by $40. No, it's about 30, somewhere around $25, $30 lower. And then you'll buy 8 Bitcoins. What I showed you earlier, for example, if you place a market order to buy 8 to 10 Bitcoins, you'll have to buy up all these orders that are currently in the order book. And you understand that you won't be buying at just one price. It will be different because at some levels there are more Bitcoins, and at some levels there are fewer Bitcoins, and the final price. Here we can see that on average you'll buy at 98,566. You see the top line, it says the price is 98,568. So, to buy 10 Bitcoins, you would buy them on average at a price of 98,547, even though the current price is completely different. And the less dense it is, the more you'll experience slippage when selling or buying large volumes. So, to buy 10 Bitcoins, you would buy them on average at a price of 98,547, even though the current price is completely different. And the less dense it is, the more slippage you'll experience when selling or buying large volumes. That's why we try to work with liquid assets. Why? Because we operate on the concept of entering positions on much lower time frames on smaller ones. We'll discuss what a time frame is in future lessons. And for us, a lot of liquidity is required to enter positions with large volumes. So, you have to use the appropriate assets for your trading. So, let's go back to stop limit and stop market orders, because that's where most of the questions come from. But first, let me go over the limit orders on the terminal once again. I'm on the video lessons, just so you know if anyone wants to listen again, or if someone is not satisfied that I'm not very structured. We're discussing the question that interests you. You can go to the video lesson. There is a timestamp that describes a specific limit order, so I'm separately talking about limit orders with a timestamp and separately about market orders in the video lessons. You can review this, but let me talk about it again during the lecture. The terminal is classic. It looks like this. There can be a lot of orders here, a lot of variations. We may not even suspect what different types of orders there are. But you need to understand that at the core, there are always two types of orders, the limit order and the market order. There are no more than these two. Everything else is just variations that try to place themselves in the order book in the future using stop prices. But in the moment, we can only work with these two tools, either a limit order or a market order. So, about the limit order, a limit order for buying and selling looks like this. Here is the price at which you want to buy or sell the asset, and we set it. As I remind you, we can buy at a price lower than the current price, that is, below 98,558. But the price has already changed, or sell above the current price. Let's try to place a limit order to buy Bitcoin, for example, at a price of $97,500. In this cell, we enter $97,500 and set the volume that we want to buy. Let's say 0.01 Bitcoin. After that, the system shows us how much in dollar equivalent we need to spend to buy that amount of Bitcoin. After that, we click buy and confirm. That's it. Limit order has been placed. When the price goes down and hits the outer sell order, it will trigger that limit order and the system will buy at the price we set. This amount of Bitcoin will appear in your balance. We close this order. We don't need it for selling. You enter the same thing here, for example, 100,000. You set the volume that you have in your balance and click sell, and the order is placed. What if you realize that the price isn't reaching that point and you want to close it? You click here on the basket and it disappears just like with the limit order. But I want to remind you that we can't control the price at which we buy or sell the asset. We can only set the volume. So, let's say I'm buying, but in this case, it's not a spot terminal, it's a futures terminal, so it looks a bit different here. However, we open a position. We're not buying the asset, but for the sake of example, it doesn't make any difference. I've bought everything, or rather, I've opened a long position. For this amount of Bitcoin, it's $98,600. And now it's all open, I'm closing it. The same goes for a market order. For selling, I enter the volume that I want to use. To open a sell position, I click sell, confirm. The same thing A short position or a sell position is open, and if the price goes down, I'll make a profit. If it goes up, I'll incur a loss. I'm closing this position. Let's move on. The most important orders for us are stop limit orders. Why? Because stop limit or stop market orders, let me make a quick clarification that it's most convenient and safest to work. Stop market orders. Why? Because you will 100% close your trade. What are the reasons? We shouldn't open trades using a stop limit order. Not always, or rather, they don't always work out the way we need them to. We'll discuss this now, but let me just say, once again, to remind you, the cryptology team and most traders use stop market orders to close their positions at a loss. Stop market orders. Those who trade intraday, what are we teaching you in the course? They work on the same principle as limit market orders, but there is an activation price for the stop. So you see, this is the stop price. It acts as a trigger upon reaching which a limit order is placed in the order book, or a market order starts interacting with the exchange. So when we work with a stop limit order, it doesn't get placed in the order book, but stored in the system. So there is some kind of pending order, and there's this trigger upon reaching which the limit order will enter the order book, or the market order will work from the very last bid in the direction we need. Let's try to place it. Let's say we have a position open for an increase. Let's open it together. I've opened a long position using a market order, and it's all set. I want to set a stop order using a stop limit order. Let's say I think that if the price goes below this level of 97, well, let's say 97,600, then I'd rather close my trade at a loss because I believe the price will go down further. Down, we place a limit order to sell, enter a stop price of 97, not as much as we said 97,600, or rather, we want to place a limit order at 97,600 because it's the limit order that will close the trade, and the activation price is what triggers it. So this trigger needs to be a bit higher. Why? Because it activates the order. Therefore, there should be some buffer between the activation and the actual execution of the order, right? So this trigger needs to be a bit higher. Why? Because it activates the order. Therefore, before the activation and execution of the order itself, there must be some gap. Why? Because let's go back to the diagram that we discussed earlier. Take the hamster away from here, and I'll delete this. But we don't need that at this moment when you're placing a stop limit order at a certain price in the process, at this very moment. This trigger price, when the limit order is reached, goes into the order book. But if this gap between the stop price and the limit order price is very low, there is a chance that the price may be higher. That is, it will be in time for this moment, which most often occurs on a liquid assets. It might move up at that moment and your limit order will remain unfilled, meaning such situations can occur. Then the price, for example, returns somewhere and your order didn't trigger. This sometimes happens with stop limit orders, or rather with limit orders for closing a position, because the price only partially touches the level. But at this level, there aren't enough trades, meaning there aren't enough limit orders to close it. There aren't enough opposite orders to close your position, and the price moves away. What I mentioned is that either the limit order will be partially filled, or it won't be filled at all, and will just hang there. To ensure it works 100%, we try to create this buffer, which should definitely be enough for the orders. Or to avoid the situation where the order just hangs in the void, you know? In that gap between the red line and the green handle, there was some space to set it. Usually I recommend placing it around, let's go back to the exchange, around the level, well, at 0.05, but not at 0. There was some space in that gap between the red line and the green handle where to set it. I usually recommend placing it around, let's go back to the exchange, at about the level, well, at 0.05, but not at 0. Let's just use the calculator now to see the different asset prices. I'll just calculate how much that will be in numbers. If you set your limit order somewhere around 0.01%, for example, that should be quite enough. If we look at these prices, that gap would be around, say, $30 in Bitcoin. So what we're doing again is placing a stop limit order to sell in order to secure the open trade. Just in case, if everything goes off plan and results in a loss, that's why we set the price at which we want to do this. After that, we set the stop price a little higher to create that buffer, 97,620. So it's a little bit higher. This order will be, and the amount of Bitcoin for which we opened the position. We opened it for 0.01 Bitcoin. I enter this volume in the volume box, click sell, and confirm. What's happening? The stop limit order to sell has been placed. So, as soon as the price reaches the stop price level, 97,620, which is just a little bit higher. You see, the blue line is just a little above the level at which we are. We placed a limit order to be filled at a price of 97,600 with this volume. The trade will be closed. Let's close these positions. And I'll try to open another short position, which is the opposite of the long positions. There's not so much a difficulty, but rather a reverse situation. The orders to close a short position are buy orders. So you always need to remember the rules. The opposite order is a mirror order. The one that you opened, so if you opened long trades, which are the green ones, in this case you bought Bitcoin, then your opposite order is a sell order. If this is a futures contract, if it's a short trade, then your opposite order is a buy order. So, for us, where will the stop order be if our opposite order is a buy order above? So, since our profit comes from the price moving down, the loss comes from the price moving up. Let's imagine that if the price reaches the level of 98,800, we want to close the position at a loss. I'm doing the same thing, opening a stop limit order, but now I'm using it for a buy. To do this, we set the price of the limit order. For the price we specified, it will be approximately $98,800, and we set the stop price slightly lower. To create a buffer, let's set it at 98,700. After that, we specify the volume for which the position is opened. We opened a position for 0.001 Bitcoin and clicked buy, confirm, after which a limit order, a stop limit order, is placed. When the activation price of the stop limit is reached, the limit order will be placed at the price of 908,800 in the order book. And we will close the short position. I'm closing this trade with this volume, and additionally, I'm closing here. There's one thing, but it's about manually placing orders. That these trades are physically placed on the exchange. What you just saw, I closed the position, but the order is still hanging. So, in order to avoid incurring additional losses at some point, these trades always need to be managed. When you're done, you need to close all the orders that you placed for managing your position. Unfortunately, they have to be closed manually to get around this, meaning you have to try. When you finish, you need to close all the orders that you placed to manage your position. They need to be closed, unfortunately. They have to be closed manually to get around this, meaning you have to try. You can either place a stop order for the trade itself or a take profit point. There's a button called TPSL, see it here, it's marked with a square. When you click it, two lines appear here. They're mentioned in the guide. It's called take profit and stop loss. Stop loss is what we just set up. This is a stop order which is the level at which we plan to close the trade at a loss. A controlled loss, so as not to incur even greater losses. This is done because, according to your trading strategy, this shouldn't happen. And we hedge ourselves by setting a buffer, a price level at which the trade will close. Even if we incur a loss, it's calculated, and we'll discuss this further in the future. And there's one more line here called take pro, which is basically take profit in English. You're taking your profit, which is the level at which you plan to secure your position in profit. He can also post video lessons. I started with a limit order, and I also showed how to work with fixing using a limit order. And you can review that again if you want. But let's use a simpler method. Let's set the take profit through TPSL. Let me choose again, market order TPSL. Our position will open for a buy on the rise. Let's open it at 0.01 Bitcoin. At the same time, we want to set the profit at a price of $100,000. We believe that the price for our trade is at 98,540. It will reach 100,000, 100 plus, and at the same time we'll set it at the old price we considered, 97,600. So here, I'm setting it at 97,600. When you use the TPSL button, these are market orders. So when we use take profit, it's a stop market order at some level. And the same goes for stop loss. It's a stop order that we've already selected. This is a pending order, a market order at the level of 97,600. We click buy and confirm. What's happening? The position has opened, and immediately two orders are drawn here. It says stop market for profit and stop market for loss. So if the price goes according to my plan, I'll be making a profit, and here the P&L will show up. It will be positive, and if I'm making a loss, it will be negative. And when the price reaches this level, the stop market will trigger. That is, if the price goes according to my plan, I will make a profit, and this is where the P&L will emerge. It shows a positive P&L, negative if there's a loss. When the price hits this level, the stop market triggers, closing the position. The TPSL button simplifies order placement, linking them to the position. If the price hits take profit, it locks in, closing the position. Thus, this order closes as the position is fully closed, with the opposite situation applying. So, if the price reaches the take profit, it automatically gets locked in, and the position closes. More precisely, this order is closed in exactly the same way, because the position is closed completely and the opposite situation. If the price reaches the stop order, the position will close, and it will also close the take profit that you set above. If we place orders manually, as I just showed you, or like in the video lesson, though I also talked about TPSL in the video lesson, then this order will remain open. So, what's happening? You have an open trade, for example, for a sell, or rather, what we currently have open for a buy, and the price reaches the stop order. The trade closes, and this order also closes automatically, but the take profit remains open. Why? Because it's a separate order that is physically placed in the exchange system. And as soon as your trade is finished, if you placed it manually, you need to go into the terminal, go to this tab, and close it. Because if it stays open, the price might reverse, go up, hit that order, and that's how you end up locking in a loss. In a sell trade, at this point, a position will open for a downward movement. You definitely don't want to do that, because this trade wasn't initiated by you and you didn't predict it. So here, when you place orders manually, you need to keep an eye on them, but if you use TPSL, that problem is completely solved. Let's close the position. You see, all the orders disappeared immediately because they are tied to the position itself. There's also sometimes a question about how to set a partial take profit, meaning at certain levels. Sometimes people don't want to close their position with 100% of the open volume or sell the asset completely. They want to do it partially. For this, you can use a stop limit order. Let me open a position again. Unfortunately, TPSL doesn't allow for that. You can either set a 100% lock-in or a full 100% stop order. But we want to set, for example, 3 take profits because based on our analysis, the price might reach that level. For example, with a higher probability, it will reach the second level, and with a lower probability, it will reach the last level. Well, with the lowest probability, I'm opening a trade. Let me increase the leverage a bit here so that I have the ability to open a larger volume of trades. To open the orders, I open a 0.3 BTC trade, click buy, confirm. Now I have a buy trade. Want to set stops? Several take profits at 100,000, one on 1,000, one on 2,000. 0.3 BTC. I click buy and confirm. Now I have an open trade for a buy. And I want to set several stops. Rather, several take profits at the levels of 100,000, 101, 102,000. In my analysis, I believe that the price is most likely to reach 100,000 to 101,000. It's already less likely, and the smallest probability is at 102,000. There's a chance of that, and I don't want to lose the potential of this trade. I want to break down my take profits. As I mentioned, for such things, a stop market order is mainly used. It's simpler. So, since we use liquid exchanges, the order book depth here is quite large, and there isn't much slippage. But, in any case, we need to be aware of this, and the stop market order is more convenient for our work. Since the position is a buy, I will use stop market sell orders for this. For this, again, we enter the prices at which we want to sell, set a pending order, and execute a market order. I'm setting the volume since the position is opened at 0.03 BTC. So if we break it down into three parts, I enter 0.01 here. I click sell and confirm. And a stop market order for a sell has been opened with a volume of 0.015. When the price reaches it, only a third of the open position will be closed. I will do the same with the level of 101,000, correcting the number, the exact same volume. I click sell, confirm. Another stop market order for a sell is placed, and we do the same with the level of 102,000, the exact same volume, sell and confirm. Now 3 orders are placed, meaning 3 take profits, at which the price will be partially locked in when reached. 1/3, 2/3, and the entire position will be closed. If the price goes in the opposite direction, it's better to set a stop order, of course. For this, you can use TPSL here or set it manually. Let's fix it. We're placing a buy order manually, and again, if we sell at a loss, then it's a sell order. Just like here, but in the opposite direction, we can set it here. Let's set it at the level of 97,600, just the volume. We're setting it to 0.03, just like here, but in the opposite direction, we can set it here. Let's set it at the level of 97,600, just the volume. We're setting it to 0.03. And why? Because the position is opened with this volume, we click confirm all. The order is placed, and what's happening is that we have 4 orders set, and the position itself is already open. There are 3 orders at different take profit levels, and along with that, there's a stop loss at the level of 27,600. That's it, we are protected from a drawdown. At the same time, we can also get a take profit. But let me remind you, again, just like we set everything manually, now, therefore, if the price reaches this level, these orders will not be closed, they will remain hanging in the air. Using the program. From the next lesson, set up notifications. You'll get phone alerts for losses. Orders will close automatically, allowing you to continue analyzing and working without worries. Notifications. That will tell you when the price has reached your level. You see, on the exchange, a notification comes to your phone, for example, your mobile, indicating that the trade, well, for instance, was going at a loss. All these orders will automatically close, and then you can calmly continue, analyzing and working without any worries. You see, I closed everything, the position, closed the order. The lowest stop order was closed, but these orders are still hanging in the air. We always need to check this, especially if you're not using the TPSL button. Of course, I advise you. But again, I want to remind you that we are focused on training. So I don't know what situation you might find yourself in the future during your trading. Your development can go much further than, for example, what we teach in the course. But you need to understand that with the help of orders, your maneuvers with trades and speculation are quite flexible. You can use them in different variations. For example, what we teach in the course. But you need to understand that with the help of orders, your maneuvers with trades and speculation are quite flexible. So you can use them in different variations. And that's why we're trying to explain this theoretically here and practically, how to work with all of this. Let me read some of your questions, because usually based on the questions we can work through additional points right away. Some moments Do you use stop orders, limit stops, and market orders in your trading? And where are stop market orders mainly used? Stop market orders to set a take profit. And if it's a stop market order, I'll give you a stop limit order. If you're setting a take profit, you can also use a limit order. And if we're talking about a stop market order, if you want to set a sell order above the current price, then in any case, it's a stop market order. But for stop orders, we always use them. Stop market order. And please, friends, I want to remind you right away what usually happens. So, this is how it happens in the first lectures. Please, do not duplicate your question. I will definitely read it. I just need to. I'm going from top to bottom, and it's not because I missed your question, most likely. I just haven't gotten to it yet. And your duplicating it won't make this process any faster. How long the stream will be. In the future, I can answer that streams vary. There are short streams that last about an hour, and then there are longer ones in the advanced packages, and so on. Streams can also be 2.5 hours long because there's more extensive material, and it's not always possible to fit everything into a short time frame. Streams can be 2.5 hours long because there is more extended material, and it is not always possible to fit it in. In some short time slots, the lecture recording is always available. It's usually posted. The next day it's available on the platform. So you'll always be able to rewatch the lecture if you weren't fully present at the lecture or if you couldn't attend it at all. Can you please tell me where the quotes come from? Here they are. Basis. These numbers are based on real trades that occur on the exchange. So all these orders are physical orders placed either by people or by some algorithmic systems. And based on these changes, when market orders interact with limit orders, we see the price history, not the transaction history, which is displayed on this panel, and the dependencies of these trades. The price changes, as I mentioned, if someone really wants to buy a large enough volume of Bitcoin with a market order right now, let's say, for example, at a wider price range. Let's say someone wants to buy on the exchange. Right now, it's 240 Bitcoin just with one market order. He will have to spend $24 to $25 million, and he will shift the price to $900 for $98 to $800. So, at this moment, we will see that the price has gone up. In the context of trading, particularly when dealing with financial instruments, does the phenomenon of the spread, which refers to the difference between the bid and ask prices, only become effective or operational at this specific level when one is entering the market using a market order? This question seeks to understand whether the spread's impact is limited to this scenario or if it applies more broadly across different trading situations and order types. Mostly yes. Why? Because of the limit on orders. You will be waiting for the current price to be reached anyway. And here, rather, the spread has more influence on your calculation. So, you saw the price at, for example, 98,700, but in the end, your purchase ended up with some slippage, either up or down, for example, by 0.5%. But if you still place a limit order at the exact price, then in any case, it will be filled for you if there is such an opportunity. The exchange will fill it exactly at your price. So here we are mostly talking about market orders. How will I know that I've made a profit from a closed position? Your balance on the exchange will change. This is called slippage. Yes, I already mentioned that. There are some students who are already familiar with certain terminology. Don't you think that we're all just making things up here based on our own experiences? A lot of the students, in general, aren't familiar with this. That's why I have to explain this terminology, which you already understand, at a basic level, using examples on my fingers. If I just say the word slippage to a person without explaining how the order book works, he won't understand anything at all. So, I need to explain what lies behind this slippage. And I always try to explain this in words. And then, of course, I talk about slippage itself. What amount is better to set for a stop order? This amount depends on the analysis you've conducted. Based on that analysis, what amount of funds do you need to bring into the trade? And based on that, it will be calculated automatically. The stop order level, at which you will close your position, please don't rush ahead. This topic is risk management and you'll be discussing it more. We'll discuss all of this in the lecture and also do the homework. We will carry out all these calculations. There are specific tools for this that do everything automatically. You don't need to calculate anything. Now, when trading, I will represent a hamster, which is not the order book. It's a candlestick. No, the candlestick is what we will be discussing. We'll discuss in the next lectures that a candlestick is this little rectangle that shows how much from what level until what price has changed in a 15-minute range. If we switch to the 30-minute chart, you'll see that this candlestick has increased. If we switch to the hourly time frame, these candlesticks are again. The same goes for the 4-hour time frame, not different. So you see this big candlestick. This means that the price over 4 hours, that is from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock, has changed. So, at this level from 94,366 to 98, 236, but don't rush ahead. This is the next topic. Why sell at a price lower than the current one and buy at a price higher than the current one? I hope I answered that question. Maybe you asked it earlier. If you didn't understand, please repeat it. I don't understand anything, and that's okay. You've come across completely unfamiliar material, and you won't be able to understand it at all if you haven't had any prior experience with it. So, you'll have to go back and review the video lesson, try to pause the video, work with the terminal, and attempt to set these orders yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to grasp it theoretically. In any case, you'll need to put in some work. That is, you will then have to rewatch the video lesson, try to stop the video, work with the terminal, try it yourself, post these reviews. Otherwise, you won't be able to understand it theoretically. In any case, you'll have to put in some work. Well, friends, I'm currently reading the questions, after which I tried to pause you, about who has made money in the course. I've been reading for 10 seconds now and I just can't catch a real question. So, I have to read carefully through each one because there's something in every message. In this message, a question may arise from someone who wanted to know something. That's what the chat is for. We completely understand that you want to communicate. That's what the work chat in Telegram is for. There's a separate thread called Flood. Can you hear me? Feel free to ask any questions within the bounds of decency, of course, and according to some rules of etiquette, I don't know, normal communication without insults, to ask questions, communicate, and so on. I can't understand the difference between stop limit and stop market orders. Stop is just a trigger that postpones the execution of an order until a certain level is reached. To a certain level. So we move the execution of the limit order, that is, its physical placement in the order book, to a certain level until the price reaches that level. Let's say the price is currently $98,920 and you want the limit order to be placed only when it reaches $99,000. For that you need a stop. So this activator only executes some action after that, and that action will be a limit on this order, or it could be a market order. It doesn't really matter. So a stop is just a way to move things around. And the limit or market order works on exactly the same logic as the limit and market orders. That is, if you understand how a limit and market order work, then it is the same thing. We're just postponing the execution of the order until a certain price is reached. That's all. So, the stop limit order will be placed in the order book when the stop price is reached, not immediately when you place it. So, when we use a regular limit, we set the price and it immediately gets physically placed in the order book. With a stop limit, it won't be placed in the order book. You simply postpone its execution. That is, you postpone its placement physically in the order book until the price reaches it, to a certain level that you set using the stop price. Why is it better to use stop limit and stop market orders instead of take profit and stop loss? It's the same thing. Why? Because stop loss and take profit are just functions that you execute. It's some kind of operation, but the tool you use to do it is already an option you can choose. You can set take profit using both stop limit and stop market orders. It's the same as using a stop order with a stop loss. This is some kind of operation, but what tool you will use to do it is already some kind of option you can set it. You can set take profit using both stop limit and stop market orders. It's the same as using a stop order with a stop loss. You can place it either with a stop limit order or a stop market. We recommend using a stop market. I would like to know more about stop limit, stop market, and stop loss. Please repeat your question during the lecture if you wrote it down while I was still talking. If you didn't understand it afterward, we can come back to it. Are there any advantages to trading illiquid assets? Yes, of course. Quick price movements are exactly what people like to take advantage of when trading small altcoins. Various altcoins. But this carries very high risks for inexperienced speculators. So it's better not to interact with that for now. Especially with futures trading. In general, don't get involved with that. Just please. And guys, of course, it's better there. They always say that it is better to start practicing right away. To work somehow, it will be faster. It's better to start some work with practice, at least starting from the middle or the end of the advanced package. It's better to wait until you've completed your training, go through the entire program, and learn at least a bit about how to analyze charts. Only after that can you start trying to work practically with with the terminal, with practice, with real money. But again, we will study all of this in the upcoming topics. In any case, we never, ever advise working with beginners, even after completing the course, on the entire deposit. Because you will definitely encounter some technical errors and you will have analytical mistakes. And these mistakes can cost a lot of money. So you can take from your deposit or from the funds that you plan to allocate for trading. Take a small amount, like $100 or $200, just enough for you to be able to open order volumes and just practice there. That's it. So this will be the best training for you right now. For now, there's no need for more. Well, that's it. Please wait. We'll cover it in future topics. We'll talk about all of this. There are also separate demo accounts where assets are provided for management, basically virtual tokens. You will be able to place trades using this. Everything is in the future. Hang in there. You won't be making any money while studying the first topics anyway. Maybe I upset someone, but I hope you weren't counting on that. So, here's another question. I don't understand the difference between a limit order and a stop limit order. I hope I've explained this already, but if it's still unclear, let me know. Please repeat just a question, because I see timestamps for the questions, and I realized that it was asked quite a while ago. Can you set one price for buying? You mean to set a stop limit order and a stop price and a limit order at the same price? In principle, you can, but there's no rational objective reason for it because most likely there's a chance that it won't fill, for example, some volume that you specified and you really don't need that. Yes, friends. Well, let's talk about color. Even the analogy of selling. Usually it's about buying when it's green and selling when it's red. You can see here it's highlighted, buy is green, sell is red. Again, you can always remember the analogy. Everyone wants to buy something cheaper and sell it for more. Therefore, if the current price is below this, then above the current price is selling. There's an option to set a dark theme. It's really hard on the eyes. Sorry, It exists, but our course is a terminal color scheme for visual design is usually white. And if it's for yourself, then of course there's this little cross here. There's a little gear icon. Here, for the dark theme, just turn it on, and the dark theme will be activated. All of this includes video lessons. I talked about this in the lesson on orders. Does this only apply to spot trading, or does it also apply to futures? As far as I understand, the futures contract isn't involved in trading. The asset itself is the item being exchanged. No, it interacts just like with spot trading. And you wrote a bit incorrectly about the futures market in the second part. Futures contracts involve real assets, but we trade perpetual futures, which are virtual cash-settled futures. They are placed in the order book, but they don't touch the physical asset. The futures market and the spot market balance physically. Bitcoin balances through funding, as discussed. They are also placed in the order book, but certainly, yes, they do not interact with the physical asset directly, but still, indeed, the futures market and the spot market are physical. Now, if we take Bitcoin, they essentially balance each other out in any case with the help of funding, which again was discussed in the video tutorial. It turns out that in the assets section there is one price and we sell it at a higher price. But look, when you see in your account, for example, you have some balance, and you see that you have some asset, it shows your balance as of today. So for example, if it's $450, when you sell that asset at that moment, you're probably not going to get 450. Most likely you'll get something like 448, 449, and maybe $5 less, so there will be some discrepancy. Why? Because the current price doesn't match the latest buy and sell orders. Even for the most liquid assets, there's always some gap, but there is. Let's try this out in practice together. You shouldn't really rely on this too much. This is just a tool that you can use to get a better understanding of what's happening with the orders. Let's go into the settings. Here, I'm right-clicking on the settings area. This will be in a future topic of this program. Please. There's no need to figure out what this is right now. We'll discuss this in the next lesson. There's a tab here like Scale SEM lines, which might be in a different language for you. The ask is hidden here. I'm clicking on the view in line, which means the number on the price scale and the line that shows me the levels. Remember, we discussed that I'm going to switch to a lower time frame. We discussed that there can be different levels, and we can set these extremes. And if these lines don't really show us much, then take a look at the numbers. So you see that the highest buy order is $10 lower, even a little more than for selling. So that's the spread, and these orders are constantly jumping around. You see they are changing. Why? Because real trades are happening. Somewhere, the deal got eaten up, just like I showed you. The little hamster ate the seeds. The price shifted, but the sell orders haven't had time yet. Work it out and go down. But in the moment, in just a fraction of a second, they get executed. Let's observe now. You see they are placed closely now. Everything has stabilized. The price is almost the same, you see. Whoa, the deal has been made, that's it. The numbers change very quickly. You see it can even reach up to $10. The difference, why? Because you see the price to us has shifted, but the bids and asks can't keep up. So these are the extreme buy and sell orders. Right now they have a $10 difference. Because the prices didn't have time to stabilize with each other. And depending on the width of this spread, it can mess up your trades, some deals. So this needs to be taken into account, but we will discuss this in future topics. I'll turn this off, with your permission. And let's go back to the terminal. How to buy Bitcoin if there are buy orders? I didn't quite understand your question. If you want to buy Bitcoin, then you can place a limit order below the current price. For example, if the current price of Bitcoin is 98, 98, 948, 948, 917, then I'm just looking at the spot chart. I'm looking. Let me switch to the spot at 98. 940. So, if you want to buy Bitcoin, in any case, that price will be lower. You can use a limit order to set the exact price at which you want to buy, or you can use a market order, but then be prepared for there to be a small margin of error in the execution of your trade. Let's say you want to buy let's set a smaller volume. You want to buy half a Bitcoin. Will you buy it at this price of 98,902? Well, this volume will be enough for now. So if you buy 0.5 Bitcoin, so you'll buy it at that price, but you see it's different from the current price. That is, you can calculate for yourself what you will buy at such a price, but in reality you will buy at this price. Depending on the volume you have, the price will shift further away from the current price. If you want to buy this amount of Bitcoin, just a reminder for you, you need to look in the middle, 2 and 55, so the average price of your purchase will be 98,954. You see, it's different by $5. If the price reverses after the stop limit order, there may be a partial execution of the order, or it may close completely. If it reverses near the stop price, it may happen that the price touches it. The stop price sets a limit order. If the price reverses instantly, your order stays and the trade won't execute. Crypto examples show no difference from currency pairs, as orders are the same. This may not happen, the deal will not be completed, you will simply close the limit order later, which will remain in the system. All examples will be on crypto, and there won't be any difference with currency pairs either, because the orders are exactly the same. For convenience, we still use a crypto terminal because they look more concise for beginners. Once you get the hang of it, you won't care about other terminals. We will also study all of this in future topics. There is a separate topic. These are called trading terminals, which are used for the currency market, stock market, and commodity market. We will go through all these terminals separately in future lessons. If we're talking about futures, then why not just use stop loss and take profit? Of course, I mentioned just a little while ago, about 20 minutes ago, that it's better to use this. But sometimes, to expand your trading options, you need to set, for example, 3 take profits. In this case, the Whitebit exchange does not allow you to set 3 take profits through the TPSL system. Let's go back to futures trading. You see here we can only set 1 take profit and 1 stop loss. So, here, you'll have to set everything manually. And how much will we get from the close position? How much profit? Well, it depends on where you close the position and where it was opened. I can't tell you right now. You haven't even provided any data about opening the trade or anything. The system will show you your profit in real time. Let me show you again. For example, I opened a position with this volume. The position is open. You see it says P&L. And the profit and loss is currently 0. If the price changes quickly, then I'll be getting, you see, minus 0.1. USDT is currently either up or down. In this panel, you can see your profit, which is currently running for the open position, or the loss. It is necessary to do everything on Whitebit, but we recommend the search bit. But I don't know which exchange you'll be using, which one will be convenient for you to work with. So, these tools are the foundation of all exchanges. So there's no difference. I just skipped over the questions updated quickly, and now I'll go back. I'll find it. This way, I will search thoroughly and meticulously. I'll answer. I will provide a detailed response. I found it. I have discovered the solution. But how will I know that the line has indeed reached the designated stop line? You need to close the position. It all happens automatically. All these orders are triggered automatically when the price reaches the levels you set. You don't need to do anything manually. Good afternoon. On this exchange, you can't set a TP. At different levels, it's worth placing partial take profits with separate limit orders. You need to set take profits on the Whitebit exchange using separate limit orders. If you're going to use just 1 take profit, then you can use the TPS function. Yes, during partial take profits, as I wanted to close the position at each level. At the third level of the position, so I divided the volume of the open position by 3, and it turns out that my position was opened at 0.3, and therefore I entered 100th into the take profit cell, 300ths, and therefore I entered 100th into the take profit cell, 0, 1, and if I wanted to close, for example, at 2 take profits, then I would enter 0.15. You forgot to add a 0 to your 15,000. It's not 150 thousandths. How do you set up something like that? The price reached 100,000, we sold 0.01, then it went up to 100, and we sold again, well, thousands. So I just talked about this, about partial fixation. Do I understand correctly that the OSA order is a limit order, plus TPSL is, it could be a market order, but let me switch to the spot terminal now. They give the opposite. I forgot which one it is on the futures terminal before the OSA. Yes, that's right. It's a limit order. And a stop order, along with a take profit. I forgot which one it is on the futures terminal before the OSA. Yes, that's right. It's a limit order and a stop order, along with a take profit. We said everything correctly. If we set the stop loss through the top, market stop loss through market, we have a long position at 0.03, and we'll set the stop market order at 0.05. So the reasoning is closed. Market. Stop loss through market. We have a long position at 0.03, and we'll set the stop market order at 0.05. So the position is closed. It will open before you. If it's set manually, then your position will close, and a parallel position will open at 0.02 BTC. How do you correctly understand the mechanics of a short trade? I can sell an asset without actually having it. Please read the guide. It has theoretical information along with a visual example. It shows that when opening a position in perpetual futures trading, we are not trading the asset itself. We are trading the price difference. So basically, you can roughly call it a bet that the price will go in a certain direction. It will go in the opposite direction. You can use any exchange that is convenient for you. Not everyone can, for various reasons like jurisdiction or access issues. But you can use any exchange. But we recommend trading on the Whitebit exchange, and all our training materials are created using the Whitebit exchange. Resentment. And again, you can participate in the leaderboard when you register for Kyoshi on the Whitebit exchange. If you were registered on it before, then there's nothing to worry about. This will also work when the stop price is reached. If the price doesn't hit the limit price and goes in the opposite direction, the order won't be executed. When setting the stop price, to be more precise, when activating through the top, it's possible that the limit order will just hang there. Yes, I already mentioned that. It will just hang there, and nothing will happen. But for you, is it beneficial that it will reverse? Can you use a market order to just lock in like that? Stop loss. Through the tab, yes. You can discuss it there in the TPSL. You can also close it by placing a market order. Immediately enter the TPSL and it will be set automatically for you. When opening a position with a market order, a take profit and stop loss will be set. A stop market will open a sell position. If we didn't close it manually, yes, if you manually placed a stop market order to sell, for example, like a stop limit order, and the price, if it reaches your take profit, then if the price goes back and your stop market order to sell is still hanging and not closed, then it will open a position for a decline. So when either the take profit or the stop is triggered, loss order. When placing orders, manually, it's better to double check your terminal and close any orders that are still open. How to understand how much you've earned and how much you've spent. Thank you. You will have a panel here called Trade History, and everything is written here. So, for example, we sold, it shows the price, the amount. and the total of what was supposed to go. This is either spent or sold in this case. Yes, about what I already told you, that if it happens, part of the order remains. So for example, you had a position at 0.003 and you set a stop market at 0.05. You will open another position in parallel, so you need to pay close attention to the volume of the position you have open. Regarding the commission, we can't really go into that today. It's not exactly a super important point that I want to focus on in the lecture, the commission. Right now, I just refreshed the page, and it's being calculated here on the panel. In this case, it's the taker fee for futures trading. I won't say who it is because that's part of the homework assignment. Read the manuals. Here, the commission for them is 0035 from the volume, and maker commission is 001. I'll tell everyone right away that when you place an order in the order book, no one takes a commission from you. You can cancel it, place it again, cancel it back, and place it again. Nothing will happen. The commission is only charged when the order is executed. You can cancel it, place it again, cancel it back, and place it again. Nothing will happen. The commission is removed only at the moment. When the price activates your order, will the commission be taken from the volume of your trade? Considering the percentage of trading volume, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin's liquidity? Do you find it sufficient for trading purposes? It's crucial to assess whether the current market conditions facilitate smooth transactions without causing major... Yes, of course, it's very liquid for the crypto market. Asset. What's the name of the app that alerts you when a position is at a specified stop order? TradingView. We'll discuss this in the next lesson. Theoretically, having a volume of coins, I can place orders, and they will show up in the order book, and everyone will base their decisions on my limit orders, and the price will go up. No, I already told you that the price only goes up at that moment. When market orders interact with limit orders, it's just a limit hanging in the air. What would it mean for me when placing a limit order? This is an additional feature that we don't really use, so we don't even talk about it. We only talk about what we use in our practices. If you want to read more about this, you can find the annotation that opens up there. If you just open a trade without stop losses, can you close the trade after some time? Once you've reached a profit, you can, but we don't recommend doing that because you never know how quickly the price will change. Will you have the opportunity to close the position that quickly without any fixes? It's better not to enter a position like that. You really shouldn't enter a position without setting a stop order for take profit. In principle, you can adjust and move things around in the moment. That's true. But never enter a position without a stop order. Just never. So write this down for yourself. Never enter a position without a stop order. I'll ask again to set a stop loss. When a buy trade is opened, you need to open a stop market order to sell. Right or not? Yes, that's correct. Reverse order. Therefore, if you have a sell order open and you're making a profit from the price drop, that's your reverse order. Buying, and therefore stop market, like a stop loss, for this position will be a buy. The commission, as I understand it, is always higher for market orders than for limit orders. Yes, because market orders take liquidity out of the order book. Order books. The difference between stop limit and limit orders, if I heard it, I still didn't understand. Well, honestly, it would be better if you went back and just listened again. Once again, try to wrap your head around this a bit, but let me touch on it one more time. When we talk about it, if you understood what a limit order and a market order are, then that's basically enough. I'll remind you once again that a limit order, when you place it, is automatically placed in. It is physically it is immediately placed in the order book. It's the same with a market order. As soon as you activate it, it starts from the current price, or rather even from the last bid to buy or sell, interact with the order book, and buy or sell the volume that you specified in the order. But what if you want to do this in a pending way? So if we're talking about a limit order, if you want to bypass the constraints of the current price, let me remind you that you can only use a limit order above the current selling price and below the current buying price. So the exchange won't allow you to have two limit orders meet. So that buys match with sells. If that's the case, then a market order will automatically trigger. To bypass this, there are such things as pending orders, meaning they are not physically placed in the order book. At the moment, they are pending, meaning until the stop price or this trigger is reached by the price. A limit order will not be physically placed in the order book, meaning it is virtual. It's like it hangs somewhere, but it's not in the order book, and the same goes for a stop market order. You can use a stop price to delay the execution of a market order. So, you're not executing it from the last bid, but moving that execution to the level you need. So, basically the main difference between a limit order and a market order versus a stop limit order and a stop market order. It's just an attempt to bypass the physical placement of these orders at a specific price level in the moment. I won't explain what a taker and a maker are because that's a direct question for your homework. I hope that's enough. It's described in detail both in the video lesson and in the instructional material. Both theoretically and in the video lesson, this is shown. I don't want to give a direct answer to the homework. We will touch on scalping or the currency market. You probably don't understand if you just ask two separate questions, or if for you it's the same thing. Scalping is a separate type of trading. We don't work with scalping. We have separate intraday trading. The currency market, of course, we are considering it. There is even a separate topic called Basics of the Crypto and Forex Market. There, we will discuss in detail the structure, how the Forex market works, and so on. How to calculate the difference between the price that should result when setting stop limits, or is it enough to set the price lower, if we're talking about Bitcoin, by 20-30%? If we take any other asset, well, let's take an example and go to PP. You just set the same thing by I, a small range, so that there's some room for maneuvering in the moment. So, let's say, to fill your volume, each exchange has its own pending participants, but why is the price the same everywhere if, for example, there's a large volume purchase or limit orders on one exchange? You need to reflect on yourself, walk around, yes, that's right. Each exchange has its own trading, but you need to understand what they need to avoid creating problems for themselves. They try, if these are some small exchanges, to adjust prices themselves where there are few applications. They have their own bots that adjust the price to match larger exchanges. If it's a large exchange, then there's a separate type. Well, I don't know what to call the market participants. They're called arbitrageurs. Just so you know, it's not about P2P trading. It's about changing based on the differences in exchange rates. No, this is arbitrage. It's any transaction based on the price difference in different markets. So here we have an arbitrageur. What does it do? It's some kind of automatic algorithmic system that sees that the price on one exchange, for example, is lower than on the second. It automatically buys where the price is lower and sells where it's higher. So most of the time, it's just for instant trades. On one exchange, there's a volume of one asset, and on another, there's a different one. And there is money for both of those. And so they try to play on that difference. That's it. We definitely shouldn't get involved in that. A business with huge volumes that we don't have is a business based on algorithms, which we also don't have. And along with that, well, this is a completely different activity. It's definitely not accessible to the average ordinary person. So, with the help of such arbitrage, the price is usually adjusted on one exchange. Some other one, meaning the exchange, doesn't really have to do much. To do this, it provides this quite complex function to those who want to make money. You can download the exchange from the Play Market, and you can register using a promo code. You can also register through the Play Market if there are any promotions available. Is it safe to engage in spot trading using the exchange? And how can you buy an asset without intermediaries if the exchange has the asset itself? But you won't be able to do anything at all without the exchange if you're talking about some other methods. Well, we mostly don't use them. I don't really understand what kind of safety you're referring to. If you're afraid to keep your assets on the exchange, you can always buy on the exchange and then transfer them to your own separate crypto wallet. The exchange provides this opportunity. In the video lesson, I talked about how to deposit and withdraw assets to crypto addresses. What's the point of using a stop limit if, logically, a stop market can meet all needs when opening a position? Do you remember what a limit order and a market order are? With a limit order, you execute the order at the price you specify. With a market order, you won't get the price you set. It will be different anyway. I showed you this on the order book. If you want to buy, for example, 4 million PP, you'll have to buy it at an average price, different from the current price. And that is your additional fee. The larger this volume is, the more you'll shift the price and the less asset you'll receive for a certain volume. And if you use a limit order, when the price reaches your limit order, it will find resistance at that limit order, so to speak. In other words, the price will push against your limit order and will fill it up. And at some point, if it's a strong downward movement and you're standing against it like a concrete slab, then it will break through, and that's actually beneficial for you. You filled a large volume of assets at the price you set. So that's basically the whole difference between a limit order and a market order, in my own words, regarding the marking price and the main price. Yeah, I basically wrote a little summary in my own words. The last price is the price that occurred on the exchange. The last order is what we've already discussed. Here it is illustrated. The marking price is the average price between the futures and spot markets, so that there is some basis for calculating contracts. Last price is important to us. For you, you should only be interested in this price. We don't interact with anything else that's technical. How to correctly calculate the percentage between a trade and a stop order. Friends, I've already talked about this. Maybe some of you joined late and missed that part. It's important in any risk percentage calculation. What you're discussing comes from your analysis, meaning you're outlining some area. Depending on the width of that area, a stop order is set using a tool that we'll cover in future lessons. What you're saying comes from your analysis, meaning you're outlining some area. Depending on the width of that area, a stop order is set using a tool that we'll cover in future lessons. And based on the parameters set by this tool, we input these numbers into the terminal. All of this will be discussed in future topics and in great detail. In the topic of risk management, which will be covered in future lessons, if there are large amounts in the order book for buying and selling, it can tell us something about a possible sharp rise or fall of the asset. But why is that? Because, once again, let me remind you that market orders are needed to change the price, and even if there are a lot of limit orders for sale, this does not mean that there will be some sales, because for those sales to happen, someone has to be selling those prices in the market with a market order. If no one is selling, but those orders are just hanging there, then transactions might not happen. So what could the situation be? Orders are hanging, even getting rearranged. You'll see what's there. The density changes somehow, but there are no transactions in this trading panel, because market orders do not activate these limit orders, meaning there are no market orders. The density changes somehow, but there are no transactions in this trading panel, because market orders do not activate these limit orders, meaning there are no market. There are basically no trades. The price won't change, but the limit orders will be hanging, and I'll be waiting for market orders. For those who didn't understand, trading is like when a hamster has the seeds that you put up for sale or want to buy honestly. I don't know if you like this about taxes, whether I need to use it at all. I tried to explain it as simply as possible. Maybe it's not necessary to do this. I don't know why there's no space in the comments on the platform during the stream. I think it's some kind of technical problem. I think they already know. If they don't know, I'll write after the lecture and we'll definitely fix it. We sincerely apologize for today's issues. It's just a very heavy load at the moment. Usually the first few days, that's why the tech department is trying to resolve everything as quickly as possible. Yes, this is basically the end of the lecture. I've already discussed all the main questions. Yes, I'll remind you that there are video lessons, as I see from the question. Many people haven't watched it, or they just glanced at it while eating or doing something else. Our course is not like Instagram astrology courses, it's the financial market. You can lose all your money quickly, so take this seriously and grasp the material. This is a very serious topic. It's the financial market. You can lose all your money that you've earned in your life in just 1 second. So you need to take this as seriously as possible and really try to understand the material and review it. Again, you shouldn't think of this as a YouTube video that you just watched and remembered something from. You need to work with this material, meaning you should practice it and keep coming back to it. And only through this kind of work will you be able to effectively absorb all this material and practically apply it. If you don't do this, you'll either incur losses and, God forbid, face liquidation, and most likely you won't succeed at all. In trading, when interacting with the exchanges through the script, we will only use the Whitebit exchange, but you can use whichever one is convenient for you. We don't know where you live. Maybe the Whitebit exchange is not available to people there. For example, in the United States, I think you can't work on Whitebit. If we take the Forex market, there are actually no exchanges there. I have an exchange account. If we look at the stock market, we use different tools there. Don't rush ahead. We'll discuss all of this and we'll be waiting for it. If I'm used to depositing and withdrawing money through P2P, I definitely need to register with the OP League, and it's not possible to deposit using this method. If you can specify the script address in P2P to which you need to transfer the assets, you can do that. If you have crypto assets sitting in your crypto wallet, you can also move that money to the exchange without any fiat deposit. If you can specify the script address in P2P to which you need to transfer the assets, you can do that. If you have crypto assets sitting in your crypto wallet, you can also transfer that money to the exchange without any fiat deposit. The video lessons thoroughly explored the processes of creation and opening, providing learners with a comprehensive understanding and practical insights to apply these concepts effectively. Yes, that's correct. But if it's a limit order, that's not entirely right. Why? Because opening with a limit order means that the current price will reach that limit order, and creation means that this limit order is simply placed physically in the order book. So for it to open, it takes time for the price to get there. So it's probably not quite right to say it that way. Opening is not the same as creating. Does it make sense to keep coins on an exchange, or is it safer to fully own your assets in cold wallets? Of course, as a crypto person, let's say, connected to the crypto space, I can tell you that it's definitely in the spirit of crypto to store your assets safely in your own crypto wallets. But there are also problems with this for people, especially inexperienced ones. If you lose your private key, mnemonic phrase, or seed phrase, you will lose access to your assets and will never be able to do anything with them again. If they are on the exchange, you can always write to support and go through it again. KYC, they will restore your account, but you are never insured against some compliance issues from the exchange or some request for confirmation of funds that you won't be able to pass. Or it's the exchange, FTX went bankrupt, keep your assets elsewhere, and it buried all its users' assets. So it's probably worth keeping them in external crypto wallets. And on the exchange, keep a minimal amount necessary for making trades, externally in some crypto wallets, and keep a minimal amount on the exchange that's necessary for making trades. Why place a limit order if it will fill anyway? Or did I misunderstand something? Yeah, did you misunderstand something? Please review the lecture. I talked about this 4 or 5 times. Take a moment to think about it. If you are unsure, go back and watch the lecture again. I have explained this concept multiple times, 4 or 5 times to ensure clarity. Take your time to understand it thoroughly. Pro-G will not open a position if we forgot to remove it. I emphasize this. If you manually place an order, you definitely need to close it because it will open another position. What is the difference between stop market and stop limit in a nutshell? Is that a limit market order is used. Take notes. I find it helpful to process information. Think and write in your own words. Jot down key points to be effective. But I personally take notes. Some people don't take notes. But for me personally, it's more convenient to take notes because I also additionally process the information. Most often I try not to just write it down there with a methodical definition, but to turn it over in my head and try to write it in my own words. That is, you did some mental work and wrote down the thesis there as if you had jotted down some theses in your notes until they were the most effective. Stop market and stop limit orders affect liquidity even if they don't hit the order book. They activate similarly, remaining hidden, so exchanges don't provide this information. We can't see how many are pending, but they do impact liquidity. When the stop price is reached, they enter the order book and interact like other orders. This is why caution is advised with futures. How many stop market, stop limit orders are hidden now? These are the pending ones, but yes, they also indirectly affect liquidity. Because when the stop is reached, that is, the trigger price, they are placed in the order book, it interacts in exactly the same way, which is why they advise not to get into futures. In my opinion, it was better on futures, it was small, plus I switched to spots. The situation is that these are completely two different strategies used for spot trading and futures. If you try to trade, well, first of all, you won't be able to trade fully with spot like you can with futures because there are no short sales. Spot trading is used for medium-term and long-term positions. If you try to trade, well, first of all, you won't be able to trade fully with spot like you can with futures because there are no short sales. Spot is used for medium-term and long-term positions. Most often for the potential growth of an asset, it moves upward with quite significant movements. And there, a completely different approach to trading is used. And intraday trading is different. We opened a position, then closed the position. That's why spot trading is often recommended for beginners because there are no leverage risks like there are in futures. There's no liquidation of the entire deposit if you accidentally make a wrong calculation. For this reason, the spot market is usually recommended. Can you see any important data in the order book for analyzing an asset? Well, some analyses can be seen, but we don't use them. Slippage is the difference between buy and sell orders. If an asset is illiquid, filling a large volume means moving far from the current price. You might see one price but actually buy at a shifted price. If the asset is illiquid, then when you try to fill a large volume, you'll have to move quite far from the current price to fill your order. This is what slippage is. That is, you seem to see the current price, but in the end you actually buy an asset there, for example, with a shift of 5%. For example, if you want to buy Pepe for $6 million right now, your total slippage will be 5%. Filling an order on futures happens just like on spot. Yes, of course, a stop limit order is placed in the order book only when the price is reached, while a stop market order opens immediately, right? Yes, that's correct. More precisely, a stop limit order is placed in the order book only when the stop price is reached. A limit order is placed while a market order starts executing immediately upon reaching the stop price. If you don't delete the manually created stop market order for selling while you already have an open position, what will happen? It will open. So once again, if you don't delete it, a stop market order for selling, a reverse trade will open for the volume you specified in that order. When someone places a buy order, for example, the price on the chart goes up. No, it only goes up at that moment when a market order meets a limit order. Simply placing a limit order in the order book does not change the price. Did I understand correctly that market and limit orders are used to open a position, and stop limit and stop market are for risk management? Well, in our case, yes, but stop limit and stop market can also be used to open a position, but we don't use them for that. So for us, yes, it's about placing a stop order, well, and partial profit taking in some cases. Yes, in futures trading, and if we talk correctly about perpetual futures in the crypto market and on the cash settled futures market, in the currency market and the stock market, we only trade the value of physical assets and do not interact with them. If they did interact, then when you bought any of their oil, you would have to, unless you resold your futures contract, to bring it home with you. So, friends, I'm going to start skipping the questions I've already answered because it's been 2 hours of the lecture and the same questions keep coming up. I don't know, it's just that people are just tuning in at the moment, re-listening to what I've already said. I've even lost track of where I was with the questions. So, I'm just randomly saying that the night link to the stream, which is a digital connection allowing viewers to access the live broadcast, will always be shared by TG. This means that TG is responsible for distributing the link to ensure everyone who wants to join the stream can do so without any issues. The link is typically shared through various platforms, ensuring maximum accessibility. It's important to note that this process is done consistently to maintain a reliable viewing experience or it's only available today. It's always on the platform, so you'll be able to see it there. You're already asking questions from related topics like what time frames to study and so on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're currently discussing the exchange and orders, not the time frames, where to trade, how to make a profit, calculate, and so on. Let's start by understanding some basic topics, and don't worry about calculating all the profits and so on. If you learn with that approach, you simply won't make a profit. What is a good ping for, and how does it affect the speed of executing your trade? So, if your server, for example, is far from the exchange, well, if you're far from the exchange, then the execution of your trade will be 0 seconds slower. And in our trading style, that's not important. It's important for scalping, but we don't scalp in the scalping market. We don't do that. Leverage doesn't affect the size of the commission. It affects the position size. Yes, that's correct. There can also be slippage with a take profit and stop loss. Yes, that's correct, because you use a stop market order when setting a take profit and stop loss. But in some interfaces, there is an option to choose, for example, take profit and stop loss, using a stop limit order. There won't be any slippage there. They will talk in detail about leverage in the risk management lesson. Legal questions, friends, regarding the source of funds and so on. That's definitely not something to answer in this lecture, but rather during consultations with lawyers because each situation is unique. We always advise using money for trading that you can verify: salary money, sales, some real estate, property, some inheritance, or something else. You should only deposit money that you can verify the source of, and work with that. After that, you can always prove the first point using your trading history. Point A. Where are your funds? From the way these funds to point B. And you can always explain that, look, I received this amount and I worked with it. Where did this amount come from? And show the trades through which you turned amount A into amount B. And no one will ask you any more questions. There won't be a study of the trading terminal for Tiger Trade and CS Scalp. Until what time can I submit the homework? The course times will vary across time zones. You can submit it. Actually, we don't have any restrictions on submitting homework, but we recommend submitting it as soon as possible. How do you manage to do that? Why? Because you don't lose that learning momentum, you keep yourself in a strict discipline, in the flow, and along with that, you don't end up with a pile of material piling up. Students take too long, rush, and stress. I do my homework for a very long time, then they accumulate a fairly large tail, and at some point they try to get through it very quickly. But they can't do it, plus at the moment of volume they get stressed, and for them it's bad, usually later for doing homework. So, you don't need to rush, but still, try to regularly keep up with the lessons, lectures, and so on as they come out. What is the difference between TP and SL and stop market? They will all be validated when the market price is reached. There is no difference between TP and SL and stop market or stop limit. TP and SL are just functions. You either close the trade at a loss or you take profit. TP and SL are just a function. You either close the deal at a loss or take profit. And these functions, the tool you use to execute them, whether it's a stop limit or a stop market order, that's up to you. We recommend using a stop market order. Where can I connect the referral code on the exchange? Please check the instructional material. The very first link there is for the referral code from us. Why can't you buy an asset on the exchange using a bank card? Why can you basically deposit fiat from a bank card on the exchange? Then you can help with 5 trades. But you need to do this not through the spot terminal, but through the exchange function. You add hryvnias, for example, Ethereum. You write, I want to buy Ethereum for 500 hryvnias. That's it. You click buy and the hryvnia is deducted from your fiat balance. Ethereum is being purchased. Did I understand correctly that when the price hits the stop, it refers to a limit order at the specified price? So, you mean just the price, right? No, if you're not just talking about an order, but just the price up to that point. When the trigger price is reached, the stop limit order is placed in the order book. Or if it's a market order, it starts interacting with the best sell or buy orders. If you're just talking about an order, then the stop order itself is already an activation. Or if it's a market order, then it starts interacting with the best sell or buy orders. If you're just talking about an order, then the stop order itself is already an activation. Basically, yes, it's an analogy. The same thing. Can you use a market order and set a take profit and stop loss? Through the position tab, yes, you can do all of that if it's convenient for you. We recommend setting everything up in advance when opening an order. This disciplines you and prevents you from being evasive with the data due to greed or fear. And then the leverage is a multiplier that allows you to increase the volume of your position. Actually, many people think of it as some kind of profit or loss multiplier, but in reality, it's just a tool for reducing the volume you have in a position. So, for example, you can open several positions using leverage, but in reality, it's just a tool for reducing the volume you have in a position. So you can, for example, open several positions using leverage, because in any case, no matter what leverage you use, you will be working with a set risk in any case, set profit, and nothing will change whether you use 20x leverage, 50x leverage, or 500x leverage. In general, there's no difference, it's just with you. At the moment you open a trade, a smaller amount of your balance will be used for the trade, so there's no need to worry about that. I opened a trade, set the take profit and stop loss. Can I place an order? So when the first take profit is reached, the order automatically moves to the break-even level, so to speak. No, unfortunately that's not the case. You'll still have to do it manually. Well, maybe somewhere there are super advanced terminals, paid ones, some such functions, but I have never seen anything like this when the end of the lesson is already the end. of the lesson. It is not a collection lesson. Lectures, the kiosk from the first lecture is always very busy. You have many questions. You do not understand how else the entire training will be. Therefore, yes, unfortunately, I will not drag on. Forgive me. Please, I could not do otherwise, because I still need to answer your questions. Write shadows on the forelock. Why not answer your questions to mine? So I had to read this and respond to a lot of it regarding how much prayer helps in trading. I don't know. If it helps you psychologically to be stable, then, in principle, it can really help. We'll be wrapping up this lecture now, and I hope I didn't overload your brain too much, even if I did. If it helps you psychologically to be stable, then in principle it can really help. We're going to wrap up this lecture now, and I hope I didn't fry your brain too much, even if I did. Believe me, it's normal. There's nothing to worry about. You'll get the hang of it anyway. A lecture is always like this. Imagine you just walked into some random university. Lecture, maybe one on quantum mechanics, and they start telling you about quantum entanglement or something about functions and all that. It's clear that you'd just be in shock. It's the same here. Essentially what we've been discussing today, in reality most people don't really use the basics in their lives. And they would start telling you about quantum entanglement or something about functions and all that, and it's clear that you'd just be in shock. It's the same here. Basically what we've been discussing today is that, in reality, most people don't really use the basics in their lives. Are there any analogies between the market and the liquidity market, like with cars? Yes, when you realize that if you need to sell a car quickly, lower the price as much as possible. Essentially, it's the same analogy here. These are the extreme orders in the order book, and it's the same thing. If you want to wait, and you're not in a hurry, you can set a higher price. And essentially, this is an analogy that your price will be further away from the current price. We definitely don't work with placing limit orders in real life, so don't worry about the following topics. They won't be connected at all to low-end terminals. We'll gradually start diving into analytical tools and the analysis itself, and as we go along you'll get a better understanding of all the orders and these technical practical questions, and I assure you, you'll get the hang of it later. They won't be connected at all to low-end terminals. We're going to gradually start diving into analytical tools and the analysis itself, and as we go along, you'll get a better understanding of all the orders and these technical practical questions. I assure you, you'll get the hang of it later. Well, sometimes we don't even think about it. Honestly, if you ask the team members about the questions I talked about today, most of them wouldn't even be able to answer you. Why? Because they do it automatically. It's because I'm giving this lecture. I'm trying to describe things, come up with analogies and so on. No one usually goes this deep into it because it's not necessary. So I was trying to get this across to you. You just need to sit down and click through all of it. You'll understand perfectly that this is as simple as it gets. These terminals are designed to be as simple and logical as possible. You just need to understand the logic a little through the theory and then practice it in the actual placement. And just completely close the topic. Forget about any questions you might have had. So I'll see you in the next lesson. I also lead it. By the way, I want to say to those who are still here in the lecture that usually there are a lot of topics in the first session, and you quickly respond, or rather, write about homework assignments. No matter how many curators we assign to check the homework assignments for review, actually, we won't be able to at the moment. It's a lot to process. So, be patient. It will all settle down in about a week, and the frequency of responses to your homework will increase. Right now, there are a lot of questions from you. A lot of people are writing. Then this mass will gradually dissolve, decrease, and the responses will normalize so there won't be any delays. So thank you all. I hope everything works out for everyone, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Goodbye.